The thing is, like when we are working with the Salesforce development, when we are working on the Salesforce development, you require some backend. Backend is basically you're configuring some of the object. As an admin, you have created the object. So we had like admin part. In admin, we have created the objects, objects, fields, right? The relationships. We have created all those things uh, in as an admin. Okay. Then we have development. When we have development, that is backend development, where in the backend in development, we created Apex class. You created Apex triggers. Okay. The async Apex, all the four types to interact with your object fields and relationships and performing the logic. So the business logic, this for interacting with the database. So we made use of the Apex programming. So like Apex class can help us to interact with the database with the help of SOQL query. Okay, if you make use of the SOQL query, you are interacting with some database in the backend. Okay, so backend database, we have interacted with the help of SOQL query. We have done DMLs, and on DML, if you need to execute some piece of code, that trigger was used. Trigger was used to perform some logics on the data level based on some DML activity. So that we have seen with the help of some DML. If you are performing that, DML can be performed from the UI or from the backend. Basically, from the Apex code also you can do the DML. So with the help of that, you executed some code with the help of Apex, and all this thing is basically part of your backend. Now the front end. You're having three things. That is VS Code was, sorry, VF page, Visual Force page, VF page, Visual Force page. Okay, it was used for Classic. Then in Lightning, we have two types of front end development. One is Aura, and the another one is LWC. Okay, another one is LWC. Now, in this, all the cases, your backend has remained same. Backend programming has always remained same. Front end different as the web technologies has developed. Initially it was like VF page, then later the Aura technology came in, and then now the LWC framework, which is the latest one, is being developed. Now your UI development, we have seen there is three types. Logic development, for the backend we were having Apex. For the front end, for logic, we are having JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript is basically used for front end development. Okay, so for it basically helps you. JavaScript helps you to interact with your UI to the backend, or you can, without using the JavaScript, if you need to make the interaction to the backend, you are having another thing directly from the UI. If you need to interact to your backend database, uh, you are having Lightning data service. Okay, in Lightning, we are having Lightning data service, which helps you to interact directly to the backend. Okay, this Lightning data service helps you to directly interact to the uh, your database directly. It will, you don't need to make the call to the Apex to interact to the database directly from the UI. With the help of the Lightning data service, you will be interacting to the backend programming, backend database basically. Okay, so how the architecture will work in this case, your you're having a you're having a user interface, let's say. Okay, this is a UI, user interface. You're having, let's say, you have created a calculator. In the calculator, you are having two fields, field A and field B. Okay, two fields you have, and then you're calculating something. You have a button, calculate. Now, this is your calculator, which you have created on the front end. This has one more component here, let's say result. Whatever you have calculated, it will calculate some, let's say this calculator is only used for addition. So we will calculate something, and the calculation will not happen on the front end directly. We need to do the calculation on some records which exist in your database. So in that case, you have to reach out. First, you will be reaching out to the Apex. From the UI, you need to reach out to the Apex. From here, you will make a call to Apex, and Apex will basically, there is a database. Apex will be responsible to interact to the database. So this is your database. Okay, so Apex will make a call to the database. How the Apex will request uh, the data? It will request the data with the help of a SOQL query. From the database, if it has to make a call, it will basically make the call with the help of the SOQL query. SOQL query is again going to return the data back to Apex. And if it has to be displayed on the component, the response will be passed and it will be stored to the result. Let's say you need to do the calculation of two employee records salary. Okay. So you will pull out the two records with the help of the SOQL query by keeping where condition, like employee name is this or employee name is this. So the two data it will bring in both those records salary value. It will calculate salary of A and salary of B, and whatever is the result, it will display you on the front end. Just a hypothetical scenario we are taking in. Okay, so in this case, we are making a call SOQL query from the database. You pulled the employee salary record, all the both the salary record you have pulled. In the Apex, you will calculate, or you can pull the value from the Apex. You can just pass it directly to the LWC on the UI side. UI side, you are having three things: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. On the UI side, when I'm talking about the UI side, it's part of it has three parts: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML will basically help you to structure the page, how your calculator will look like, where exactly, what all fields will be there. Okay, so the input fields A and B you have provided, so that structure, the page structure you have just created from the HTML. CSS is used to designing the page. So let's say if you need to keep the background color as gray, the button colors as purple or whatever, like the button color as green, all such things you can do with the help of the CSS. So CSS is basically used to design the page, and JavaScript is basically used for logics. Okay, the JavaScript is basically the part of your system which will basically do the, it will perform the logic on the client side. Now, with what is the client side? When we are talking about an architecture where you're dealing with front end and the back end, your front end acts as a client. So here I'll write client, client side. Okay, this is client side. That is, you're using this UI on the front end. This becomes the client side. Then you're making some call to the server. Your Apex acts as a server. This, whenever I'm talking about from here on about the server, the Apex will be acting as a server from if we are pulling out some data, if we are requesting the system to store some data. So if you need to store some data from the front end, let's say instead of a calculator class, this is a form, and you need to enter the employee name and his employee ID, two fields you are having, and there is a save button. From this form, you need to save the data. So in that case, you will perform a DML operation here. Okay, you will perform a DML operation. From the front end, you will store the data directly. The data will be stored in the database. Whatever object type, everything, the control you can make with the help of the Apex class. We will make the call to the Apex class, and whatever is the object type for that particular data, you can decide, you can pass this data on the click of the save button. It will make a call to the server. Server will perform some Apex class logic. Line by line, it will execute the code. And in the end, it will insert the data to whatever object you have requested to. Okay, this can be a Tata employee object if it is a Tata employee, or whatever form like you have decided it to make for, you can save the data in that particular format. All right. So this is a general architecture of normal UI to backend programming. But in Salesforce, you're also having in Salesforce we are also having something called as Lightning. Okay, you're also having something called as Lightning Data Service. Okay, now what this Lightning Data Service is? Whatever form you have created from here, okay, you will make use of the modern JavaScript. So this is basically a modern JavaScript to connect to the backend. That is means your database. Instead of going through this server, Apex server, directly you will make the call to the database with the help of the Lightning Data Service. Now this is done with your modern JavaScript, JS. Okay. So this sort of this sort of controlling is called as client side or the component side controller. Okay, this is basically client side controller or the component sides controller. Okay, comp side controller. Now, in this case, how the data will be moved? First, you will pass the data to the it has a modern JavaScript to handle it. The modern JavaScript will get all the data like from here, it will be passed. B value will be passed, and the calculate when it will calculate, it will make a call directly to your database, and this will be through Lightning data service, and the database will respond. It will respond some data. It will respond some data again, like it is part of your Lightning data service. Okay, so from with the help of the backend programming, you have retrieved all your with the help of the front end or the modern JavaScript, you have retrieved the field value A and B, and with the help of the LDS Lightning Data Service, you have set this data to the database. And like if you need to receive some data, you can receive the data also. You can read the data. Like whatever, if it is a calculator, some value you need to set it to the database, and then you need to show the result on the front end. That is also possible. So LDS is not, basically it will not do the calculations, the logics, but it will fetch the data and it will push the data to the database. So some values, if you need to push to the database from any form, you can make use of the Lightning Data Service to do so. And if you need to fetch some that value, let's say employee ID or some record field, you need to show it as it is, then also you can make use of the Lightning. So it is a two-way. Again, it is a two-way data communication channel, which helps you to communicate from front end to back end, and then again from back end to front end as well, using this alternate channel. Okay, so this is basically your architecture, because of which you are learning LWC. So learning is like LWC is used for such things which cannot be done only through the backend programming. Like something from the front end, you need to create some structure, the components and all. It cannot be done with the help of the backend. Okay. And as a Salesforce developer, you need to handle both the parts, the backend as well as the front end, to handle the communication. Okay. Any questions, anything here?